This is one of two episodes with a phenomenal woman and very good friend, Cara Wright. If you have heard in the media and world lately about the term neurodiversity and neurodivergent, and basically our brains are brilliant and we all function really differently. And we can start to look at things like ADHD, autism, through a different lens of what's the capacity here. And Cara has spent her life, and we joke in this episode about coming from the Gen X generation when those terms weren't around. And if you were dealing with a lot of those traits and feeling different and not knowing how to fit in, how she made that work for her now and what kind of was up for her as a child. So if you know anyone this podcast would contribute to, please share it. And I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Shift Your Vibe to Thrive podcast. My name is Emily Evans Russell, and I'm a single mom, multiple six-figure business owner, and master mindset and energy coach. I created this podcast with two main targets. One, to give you practical tools so that no matter where you are in your life right now, you not only know that things can shift, but you know how to make them greater. And two, to change your frequency so that you become an energetic match for everything you desire. I'm talking your relationships, your finances, your success, all of it. Think of this podcast as your weekly energetic upgrade with a mix of subconscious mind hacks, ways to quantum leap, and consciousness shifts. A place where you learn to sculpt your reality and actually finally truly have the magical life you deserve and one that works for uniquely you. Are you ready to uplevel your reality? I think I hear yes, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Thank you so much for being here. And now let's go to the show. You're one of my pack, even though I don't live with you, but you actually have a pack you live with.
Yes, I do. Thank God. Truly. I don't know what I would do without them.
Tell us about your sweet animals and like your hubby.
Yeah. Well, I am like much more of a creature than I am a person. And I think when I really actually acknowledged that I had far more in common with animals than I did with people, it like created so much more ease for me in my life because I've always tried to be a good people and I suck at it. I do. I like it so much more. What?
Maybe it's just special people.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely people in my life, but those people tend to be more creature people too. Like they tend to be people that are more comfortable around animals as well. Like, I mean, I'm married. I've known my husband for years and years. We were friends before we were ever boyfriend, girlfriend, and then ended up getting married. But it's him and I, and then we have, we've had a series of animals over the last 15 years that have just been phenomenal. All of them. Well, we had two dogs for like 8-month period of time recently. And we were both like, we need more animals. Like I literally just need more animals. It's like the more animals I have around me, the less I'm at the effect of the insanity in the world. Wow. I think that they just, for me, they literally are this like energy that creates, I don't know what the words are. It's like, you know how they have like the brown noise and the white noise and they have like, you can listen to the soothing music. Like for me, being around my dogs has that same effect energetically.
That's such a good way to describe that.
Yeah. So like I can go to a family dinner and like say we all go to my mom's house. There's an agitation that starts to occur for me. And I feel like this is getting worse, not better, but there's like an agitation. So if I'm like outside of and I could say home, but it's not my house. It's definitely when people come here and have dinner, I have my pack and they just have my back. And there's just always this energy of like, they know me for who I am and I don't have to try to explain myself or be different for them or be other than what I am in that moment. Like, I think one of the gifts of animals for me personally, and I have dogs, like I grew up with cats. We had cats and dogs growing up. In my adult life, we've just always had dogs. They're one of the only things that like, it doesn't matter where you are. If you're having like a hard day or a good day or both, because I've definitely had some psychotic days where it's both. Where it's, I'm a big high, big low, over here, over there, and it's like how so many of us, like, I really feel like COVID created such interesting things for people. Like from my perspective, I think people are a little more, I don't know what the word is, unbalanced. Like you think you can really just be kind of like all over the place. That was a level of weirdness and stress infused into people's lives that was not normal.
Yeah.
So it's like, anyway,
And
my pack is a big deal to me.
Yeah. Well, and I think during COVID, like the increase in people buying animals went through the roof.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it did. And there's a lot of people out there that buy animals that should have no business having an animal.
True story. Yeah.
You know, people that have dogs that, but then I also truly believe that, you know, you pick the people that you, I mean, like, you don't just pick the people, but like all my animals, all my dogs, I have had more than one time. Like these are just beings that I have been lifetime upon lifetime around. I don't even know if we were in these particular body shapes, but I just know them. They're just familiar to me. And anyway, but I was like a weird kid like that. Weren't like stuffed animal to me. They were real. I surrounded myself by them. I talked to them like they were like tangible. They had, and I'm not talking about like creepy, truly like a comfort to me in my life because it has not been easy for me here. That's a very simple way of saying it, but it's very true. Like I was very sensitive as a child.
Can you talk about, I mean, so this podcast is a lot about energy and our awareness of energy, and then how when we change it, stuff around us changes. So like you mentioning your dogs, as they like white noise, they calm your energy. I mean, my dog is the same way. You know, I'm divorced and my kids go back and forth, and our sweet dog goes with them because he's like my youngest little best friend. So he travels with her. And the other night, it was the first night they went back after a few weeks. And I woke up and it was like I had a baby blanket for way too long. I even like I slept with a blanket forever. And he's like that. I woke up and I was like, where's my blanket? He calms me back to sleep, just having that energy. So when you say like it hasn't been easy for you, how would you describe that in energy? And like, how has that been for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in my late 40s, so I'm like your Generation X. So we did not have all of the fancy terms for being wired differently. Nowadays, you can get like a very boutique diagnosis of why you are the way you are. Back in the day, I was just like sensitive, I overreacted, and the world was a very harsh place to me. I did not understand how people could be so just in like intense, like everything just was so tumultuous to me. So I learned how to cope, and a lot of the things that I would cope with was I would add to my environment things that were soothing to me. And you know, for whatever reason, animals, like stuffed animals, were totally soothing to me. I had like dolls too. And I don't know if maybe it's because I thought I don't remember it ever being because I wanted to be a mom. It was more just like those energies, you know, it's like for me, adding energy to my life and it's not necessarily a calming energy. It's just more like an energy that is soothing to me, that is like congruent with me. The more I have that around me, the more I can actually like be present in the havocness of this world.
Well, I love that you just said congruent with you.
Yeah.
Because we all have a unique, like literally a vibration. We vibrate differently, all of us. And so it's not about, oh, if you have a pack around you or stuffed animals, it'll work for everybody. It's like that happened to be congruent with you to give you more peaceful energy. And that's one of the things with this. I like want people to look at what is that for you? What's congruent with you?
Yeah.
You know, what are you aligned with? What vibes with you that gives you this sense of like peace or happiness or playfulness, like fill in the word that makes you feel awesome. But it's that comes from that really congruency of this for me.
Totally. And it's amazing to me, like how often we override and just step on children's requirement of those things because you've decided that they shouldn't have that anymore. Like you said, you had a blanket for far too long. Like, according to whom? You know what I mean? Like, I remember, okay, so here's like a really funny example. So like, I had a really hard time. School was a nightmare to me, fucking nightmare. And I remember there was a period of time where I would have to ride the bus, which if
I
school
hated the
was
bus.
like, oh my God, if school, it was horrific. There was one year, and I think it was like fourth grade. There was one year where a teacher, like if we were good during the day, we would get a peanut, like one salted peanut. I shit you not. And I can remember, and we would be lined up, to get on these buses. And it was just like the anxiety would just start to go up because I would be in this like buzz. And oh God. Anyway, but this friggin' peanut was a lifesaver to me. And I would literally, from the time I got the peanut at the end of the day, and it was usually like, because I lived pretty far out, like in the boondocks. So it was like, I was one of the last people to get dropped off. So it was probably like 30, 40 minutes, which it was a lifetime. And I would basically, like, that peanut would last that whole time. Like I would literally take tiny little bites and suck on it. And like, it was the most soothing thing. But this is what I realized, that is how I literally survived. Because it's not something I could have ever cognitively know that I was different like that. Like nowadays, I mean, I'm sure I would be diagnosed with some sort of neurodivergent thing, autism minimally, but like some sort of sensory thing. Cause I was like, but back then it was like, a good stuffed animal, a wonderful smelling doll, or a peanut.
Or one single salted
One salted peanut. I was just like, back as an adult, and I'm like, what a chintzy thing to give a kid. But it was literally like, I still remember it. I remember how it was soothing to me.
I get it. And I'm listening to this, and it's so funny when you said we're Generation X. I'm like, it's so funny to be like, when did we become that generation that goes, it was so different back then? But you recently sent me a video, and I think the title of it, we can link to it in the show notes. It was like 16 traits of autism in females, adults, and women. And I watched this video, and it's from a mom who her kid got diagnosed, and she happened to then get tested. Like you said, we weren't getting tested for that, and found out she was autistic, like super high functioning. And she went through, you sent me that video, and I was just laughing and in awe because every single
one. Obviously, we talk a lot more about mental illness, and we talk a lot more about, anxiety, and we talk a lot more about all the things. And when I started to actually really truly acknowledge that I am autistic, I was like, how the hell did I not fucking know this? No wonder, but I was just the shy kid, the oversensitive, I was the kid that would go home from every single family gathering hysterical. Yeah, hysterical. Because when you have that level of awareness of energy, and the more people suppress it, and the more they are incongruent with what they're saying and what they're being, like, to me, that is like the most difficult energies to be present with. If you think of any family function, that's the basis of it.
Yeah, everyone's saying one thing and thinking and being a different energy. They're not congruent. They don't match. And as a kid, you're like, what is going on? Especially if you're really aware of that energy.
And looking around, I come from a long line of, like, my mom is very aware and was raised in a very, like, North Dakota. There was no space for that. Like, there was no space that you're that aware, that you could possibly know that. And, and my dad, like, my mom would always say things to my dad, like, mark my words, that person's going to do this, this, and this. And she was always right. She always had that awareness, because she was aware of people. But, if people aren't willing to know that you can be that aware, you end up looking like the person that is crazy, or you're negative, or you're this or that or the other thing. And it's like, no, she just was really aware.
She's really new.
No one believed her.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned family functions, and it's so interesting because my older daughter, at this point in my life, I didn't think I got or understood energy. Like everyone else did, but I didn't. And I hadn't really started exploring my own, like the way I perceive it and get it. But she comes up to me, she was just turned 2. So she has some words, but not a lot of words. And she points at my belly and she goes, baby, inside, sleeping. And I was like, what? I took a pregnancy test. I was maybe 24 hours pregnant. And that's where I had to go, wow, that's amazing. I didn't think she was crazy. I was like, I wonder what she knows. And that, as she's grown up, that level has not, she doesn't talk about it like that way, but family functions, group functions, we have talks about this. She's like, hey, do I have to be out and talking with everyone? And I said, no, you do not. I said, if you can give me 10 minutes of like sitting with us while we eat, or just 10 minutes, and then you can happily go be in your room by yourself. Cause I know she requires that. That is not her thing. And I've had to, like, as a parent, you have to really check in with kids. Cause when we were little, that wasn't even an option.
Oh my God, no.
It wasn't talked about.
No, I was like, I got in trouble a lot because I didn't make all the aunts and uncles feel warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
Because I will also say the one thing that everybody in the room is trying to not say, I will just blurt it out. I call it autistic Tourette's.
It's one of the things I love about you. You're a straight shooter would be one way to say it.
Yes.
It.
Yeah. And I was like that back then.
Yeah.
And I maybe didn't use words to do it, but like if they were suppressing anger in the room, I was going to show it. For me, it's been such a gift to actually get to a place in my life where I'm actually like, I have truly stopped making myself wrong for that. Yeah. And be like, look, I'm sorry, you're uncomfortable.
Like, you can't control at the end of the day how other people are feeling, and everyone's going to respond differently. But when you go, this is me, and these are the things that give me peace, that I'm congruent with, and it doesn't have to limit your life. It can just actually make it greater, because you don't make yourself wrong, and you know what all of those things that add to your life are.
Yeah. And it's a muscle to build. It's a muscle to build, to like choose for you in the face of like knowing full well that that's not what someone else would want you to be or do or say, or it's like, it's a muscle. But I'm like grateful that I have, it's like one of the things that I think I committed to my own life of like, look,
yeah,
I'm going to really trust myself.
And I don't know what that is about. I feel I've been on that journey for a while. I'm like, man, I can't believe it's taken me this long, but also totally worth it every bit, because like you said, like a muscle, every time I actually go, wait, this is what works for me. This is not, if it's not a hell yes, and it is out of obligation or no, I've learned to go, wait, I need to trust that resistance, that like, oh God, I think I have to do that, or it should be this way, or they want me to be this way. Until you say no to that, it gives you space. When you say, no, I'm not going to choose that. And then I can choose for trusting me and stuff that actually is ease.
Growing up the way that I did, that's not what I was taught. I was taught that you do what's going to make other people happy.
Yeah.
Not what you do. You don't ever look at like what's going to work for you. Like never. That was never even like a consideration. And it wasn't that people verbally said that to me necessarily. I mean, later they did, but as a kid, you look at the people that are most in your environment, like your immediate family, and everybody was doing that. Everybody was like making other people's needs, requirements, desirements like more valuable than what worked for them. That's just what we did.
Well, yeah. And it's one of those things. It's like that, just like our generation functions one way, they were doing what they thought was really good. Like I need to raise a kid that can function in society. And so how do we do that as a culture? Well, you teach kids very early on, this is good, this is bad. You get rewarded for good behavior. You get your peanut before you get on the bus, or this is the right way to be because it's socially acceptable. You got to make your family feel like warm, fuzzy, and this is bad. And you learn really early on that, okay, if I want to and so your parents are thinking, without it, it's not even cognitive, but it's like, this is what we create, a system of pride and blame and credit and shame to determine how good or right you are, or bad and wrong.
So often what you're being trained to be is where you have a massive capacity. Like I have a capacity to go my own way. I do not need anyone's fucking permission to do anything ever. Like don't ever hire me as an employee. I am the shittiest employee you will ever have. Don't fucking tell me what to do. I have always been like that. My mom has always said I was like, she's always been like, you're a little pit bull. And I'm very willing to be like, hey, like, I see that. Like, I actually see that. I know everybody in this room is pretending that that's not existing, but I see it.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to like hold it in like my energy so like other people can see it. And my dad was always so uncomfortable with that because I think I reminded him a little bit of my mom, because I would say this person, blah, blah, blah. And I would do it with teachers a lot because they're, again, authority. Authority is not a thing for me. I've never had that where I look up to somebody and I put them up, like, that doesn't even make sense to me.
Yeah.
So like, if a teacher was like an asshole, it didn't, to me, it was like, that is just what it was. It was like, they're not a good person. They might be my history teacher, but they're not a good person. And my dad would always say, you need to find 3 things that you like about that person. And I would be like, no, I fucking don't. I do not have to fucking find 3 things. I'm like, he was always trying to get me to like, come on now, you have to, like, and because for him, that's what worked for him. We have to find what works for us.
Yeah.
I am the antithesis of that, which I think is funny. I think we come to parent, like, I don't know why we come to the parents we come to, but like, it's kind of torture.
Oh, well, I remember thinking, I think that's what partly our jobs are in some way, just because we come in with different, each generation really is. If you think about it, we're born into the universe is different. The energy on the planet is different. They have more access to, I mean, geez, we had the internet in our generation, what they have access to, and then the energy on the planet, it's just different. So of course we're going to feel challenged as parents. But I remember had my first daughter and did everything what I thought was perfect. Like I read every book. I'm going to do attachment parenting. I'm going to co-sleep, like everything. I thought, okay, this is right. And she was a really easy baby, right? She actually was a really easy baby. That changed in toddler, but I was like, oh, I did this right. And then I had my second one. And within weeks of being born, I just laughed at myself. And I thought, how funny that I actually think that the parenting technique that I chose or something influenced who this being is. I was like, she was so different and so her. And she was a pretty easy baby too, but I just laughed at how funny I thought that I had this influence over this individual being who's come here and is like, hi, this is who I am.
Yeah. But I think too, it's like all the energies that are in your life, like they actually contribute to you knowing more who you are.
Okay, so these are my 3 questions I like to ask every guest because I want to give people a resource to find more awesome things. So, Miss Cara,
yes,
what is a favorite place you've been or would like to go?
So my favorite place of all time is Kauai, Hawaii. It's just magical. The only place I've ever traveled to that I actually like, my body actually cries when I leave because it's so nurturing and wonderful and kind. And it just is, if you've never stepped foot in Kauai, not the Hawaiian Islands, it's very different. Kauai, you should go. One fun fact that I learned about Kauai last time we were there, and this makes so much sense, is Kauai has never been conquered. The island of Kauai has never, ever seen victor and loser, like defeat. It's never been conquered by anything or anyone. The king of Hawaii, back in the day, he didn't actually ever go that far because Kauai is like the far end of the chain. And that's the energy that's there. It's totally doesn't have that defeat energy. It's very cool.
Wow. I've had that place recommended. It's on my bucket list, shall we say, but I've never been and I didn't know that story.
I started going like back in the beginning, like probably 15 years ago, I started going. My husband and I would go like every, 18 months. It was horrible to not go over COVID because we had that huge chunk of time. Like that was, anyway.
Okay. Next question.
Yes.
A song, movie, or book, so you have your choice, that inspires you, lifts you up, shifts your vibe.
Ted Lasso.
Oh my God, such a good one. That's on Apple TV for people who have never watched it. It's so good.
So friggin' good. Like it does all of those things. Like, and it just depends on what I require in that day. I literally watch that to fall asleep at night. I have watched the season front to back probably 20 times now.
Love it. Okay. Last one. A person you currently find fascinating or you admire the way they live.
You warned me about this one. I'm like, oh God. I don't know. How crazy is that? Like, it's one of those questions that as a neurodivergent person, it's like, it's everything and no one all at the same time. So it's like hard for me to personally answer that. There is this person, this gentleman who he has something called the Asher House, and you can find him like on Facebook and stuff, but he basically like started an animal sanctuary. And of course he like rescues dogs. Like that's kind of how it started. He started out like left his corporate job because he was just like so stressed out and just hated life. Ended up like getting a van, like one of those buses, having a few of his own dogs. He would travel around, basically pick dogs up from rescue places and then go and basically adopt these dogs out. And he just traveled around the country. And he had his own dogs that he like couldn't really rehabilitate. So he would keep the ones that weren't going to be okay for adoption. And there was one of his dogs. I heard his story because he's in Oregon, which I thought that's such a random place. He has like a couple acres and then he just bought a ton of acres. But how he ended up in Oregon was that he just happened to be there. And one of his dogs that was in his pack was starting to like just kind of basically ended up having cancer and started going downhill, and he couldn't really travel much with him. And so he just stayed there because that's what the dog required until the dog passed on. And then he magically found this property, and then that property led to this other property. And now he's got like friggin' cats and dogs and like horses and llamas and pigs. And I mean, he's got the whole thing. It's like, and he's the coolest person. Anyways, I watch his videos a lot, especially when I'm needing to be inspired. I just love how I think he has like 30 dogs. He has a huge pack. And the cool thing is to watch how the pack actually rehabilitates the dogs.
Wow.
Like there's dogs that come to him that if they hadn't come to him through his pack, they would not be rescuable. And some of them don't. He keeps some of them. But a lot of them that end up being able to go to homes, it's because they stayed long enough with the pack that the pack like rehabilitated all their insanity out. Because, animals are only insane because we have them.
Yeah. Oh, those are so good. We'll find the guy's name and link to the Asher House in the notes.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Cara.
You're welcome.
I hope you got something out of that episode. If you like this podcast, please share it with someone you know who'd find it useful or interesting, and subscribe so that you can listen to past and upcoming shows.